But what is it? I've always taken it to just mean something quite similar to community spirit. I don't think, and the hardest bit to negotiate is the idea that by thinking your country is X, there's an inevitable implication that that country over there must be Y, where X is a positive and Y is a negative. It's the greatest country in the world. You know, it might be something we believe. I've never lived anywhere else. How the hell do I know whether this is the best place in the world to live? I quite like to live in the Peloponnese in Greece, for example, or New York looks like fun. But I love living here. Do I love my country? Well, I love people, and the only people I come into contact with on a daily basis are people who live in this country. And Keith does live in this country. Let's make that absolutely clear. So patriotism has to mean people, doesn't it? And if patriotism means people, then which people does it mean? And it means the people that you live with and the people that you live alongside. It doesn't really matter to me where they came from or where they started out, but I don't have a fellow feeling towards somebody nasty over there that's comparable to the fellow feeling I have to somebody nice over there. So what does it actually mean? If you gave me the power to decide, if two countries were vying for advantage and you gave me the power to decide which country would get that advantage, I would choose my country. But is that patriotism or selfishness? Why would you choose the UK over France? France is lovely, James. Yeah, but I don't live there. I live in the UK. So obviously if there's a juicy advantage to be gained by that country or this country, I'm going to choose the one I live in. If they're equal, actually, to think about it, if you were offered an advantage to a terribly blighted and poor country that would make an immense difference to their people's lives, or it could come to your country, our country, where it wouldn't make that much of a difference to our lives because we were already fairly comfortable, then I guess that's what foreign aid is about, isn't it? Then I'd be perfectly comfortable. In fact, quite staunchly in favour of the idea of giving that chunk of change or that advantage to a different country. But that would make me feel patriotic. If this isn't confusing enough. Foreign aid makes me feel patriotic. Foreign aid makes me feel proud of my country because I know there's an awful lot of negativity attached to our history and our imperial legacy, but two wrongs don't make a right. Just because we did terrible things in the past doesn't mean that we can't do better things now. And foreign aid is a wonderful example of sharing, of taking from a country that is wealthy to help countries that are not. Things that make me ashamed of my country, the fact that it's a wealthy country and there are people here living in poverty. Does that make me unpatriotic? I don't think so. Patriotism, I would argue, propels me to want to see everybody living here not being in poverty. I felt patriotic when Marcus Rashford led his school meals campaign, and I felt patriotic when Marcus Rashford and his teammates got into the final of the football. I felt patriotic about both. Some people booed the footballers and hated the school meals campaign, and they are probably people who wear Union flag underpants and consider themselves to be patriotic, which leads us back to where this introduction began and the dangers of conflating patriotism with racism. So I think, and you may disagree with this, and the phone lines are about to open, I think Keir Starmer has set himself the challenge of unhooking patriotism from racism. You'd need a very, very long run-up to convince me that they hadn't been completely conflated by people like Farage. And Starmer perhaps recognises he needs to unhook them. So he had a big flag behind him at yesterday's speech, which some of us may have found a little bit silly. I can't imagine anybody gets dewy-eyed about it, but what do I know? Big flag. He's trying to reclaim patriotism from the xenophobia and racism that propelled much of Brexit. The problem is, so many people will still be unhappy about me simply describing the reality of conflating racism with patriotism in order to propel Brexit, that might make Keir Starmer's job impossible. But if you take those two lines from the speech yesterday, the Make Brexit Work slogan that's not a slogan, and the patriotism, I think that's a challenge he set himself. And actually that's respectful of the British people. That's saying there's nothing wrong with being patriotic. Being patriotic is good, but let's not let these shysters and charlatans deliberately confuse it, conflate it even, with racism or nationalism or xenophobia.